Hi guys, this is Ayantiika, your legal faculty here at CLATapult, and in today's video, we are dissecting one of the most critical legal developments in Indian history. That is the Supreme Court's landmark verdict on Electoral Bond Scheme. This is a ruling that fundamentally reasserts the principles of transparency and democracy in political funding. Before we move into the substance of our topic, let me just tell you that our batches for CLAT 2027 and 2028 have already started. For more details, visit our website mentioned on the screen. And for personalized guidance, reach out to us on the contact number given on the screen. Coming back to today's topic, to understand the verdict, we need to first understand the scheme itself. Electoral bonds were introduced by the government in 2017 through amendments of 4 major acts, including the Representation of Peoples Act, Companies Act, etc. An electoral bond was essentially a promissory note available for purchase from the State Bank of India by citizen or by corporate entities. The donor would buy the bond and give it to a political party for it to be cashed. The crucial element of the scheme was its complete anonymity. The identity of the donor was kept a secret from the public and even from the political party, though the State Bank of India retained the KYC details. The government argued that this encouraged donation through banking channels and protected donors from political harassment. The challenge before the Supreme Court boiled down to a conflict between two fundamental rights. On one side, the petitioners argued that this violated the public's right to know, which the Supreme Court has long established under Article 19(1)(a), that is the fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression. They argued that informed voting is impossible without knowing the source of political funding, especially large corporate donations. On the other side, the government defended the scheme, arguing that anonymity was necessary to protect the donor's right to privacy. On the other side, the government defended the scheme, arguing that anonymity was necessary to protect the donor's right to privacy of political affiliation as an element of Article 21, that is, right to life, of our Indian Constitution. The court's task was to balance these two seemingly conflicting rights in the sensitive context of electoral funding. On February 15, 2024, a 5-judge constitutional bench led by Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud delivered a unanimous verdict declaring the Electoral Bond Scheme unconstitutional. The court here made 2 major findings. First, the voter's right to information is paramount. The court held that the financial contribution to political parties is an essential information for the voters to hold the government accountable. The possibility for a quid pro quo or a this or that arrangement between the ruling party and a wealthy corporate donor is a compelling democratic concern that mandates transparency. The right to know outweighs the claim for anonymity in this context. Secondly, failure of the proportionality test. The court used the proportionality test to evaluate whether the anonymity was a justifiable restriction on right to information. The restriction failed because the court found that the government's method was not the least restrictive way to achieve the goal. Furthermore, the court struck down Section 128 of the Companies Act, which had removed the previous cap on corporate donations. This cap had limited the donations to 7.5 of its average net profit, but the amendment allowed for unlimited corporate funding. The Supreme Court found that this unlimited funding to be manifestly arbitrary and violative of Article 14 of our Constitution. The court reasoned that allowing a profit-making entity to contribute unlimited amounts to a political party creates an unequal playing field and gives companies disproportionate influence on the political processes, thereby undermining the democratic principle of one person, one vote. As a direct consequence of this judgment, the Supreme Court issued strict directions. The State Bank of India was immediately ordered to stop issuing electoral bonds. Furthermore, the SBI was directed to disclose all details of the electoral bonds purchased and cashed since April 2019 to the Election Commission of India. The ECI was in turn directed to publish all this information in its official website for public scrutiny. The Supreme Court has declared that in democracy, the public's right to transparency in political funding is a fundamental pillar that cannot be masked by the claim of anonymity, decisively strengthening the voters' ability to demand accountability. Thank you and see you in the next video.